Welcome to another episode of Mortgage Monday. I'm Amy with Century 21, and today we will be listening to Greg telling us about closing costs. When you are buying your house, one of your biggest costs you will have as you go along the transaction will be your closing costs. And you're probably wondering, what are all the fees involved in those costs? Today, Greg will be breaking those down for us and telling us what are all the fees that are involved with closing costs. So keep on watching to learn more about closing costs.
What we need to recognize is that closing costs are only one component of what a person needs at closing. Can you tell me, besides closing costs, what else they have to have at closing?
Their down payment.
They got to have their down payment, that's one. What else do they have to have at closing, besides closing costs?
Their escrows.
They've got to have escrows. Thank you, Casey. What else? Anybody? All right. If there's an HOA, there's probably going to be some type of HOA responsibility at closing. And the other thing, and very important, are what we call prepaids. And we're going to go through each of these because people kind of lump it all together and don't realize when they say closing costs are those third-party fees that we pay at closing. We're going to go through those in a moment. Then we're going to talk about the other five. The easy one is down payment. We all know that there's a down payment on every loan except VA and USDA. So if you're doing conventional or FHA, you're going to have some type of a down payment. All right? Your earnest money will be applied toward that. Everything else is going to have to be paid at closing toward your down payment. That's the easy one. Now let's talk about closing costs. But closing costs are lender fees. Most lenders have some type of a fee that they charge. They call it, everybody calls it something different. They might be called a processing fee or an administration fee or an underwriting fee or a tax service fee. They have these third-party fees that they charge. They can range anywhere from, the least I've seen is about $795, so call it $800. Most expensive I've seen is roughly $1995, $2,000. So it's kind of everywhere in between. I oftentimes, to make it simple, I refer to those as the lender junk fees, just because it's a way for lenders to make revenue and pay for some of their third-party expenses that they're going to have operationally. Now, the other two things that a lender could charge you are loan origination fee and discount fee. Discounts if you're buying the interest rate down. I'm not going to go in a lot of detail on that, but if the interest rate's 3.25% and you want 3%, the lender says, I'll give you 3%, but it's going to cost you some money. That money it's going to cost you is called a discount point or some portion of discount points. We can go into that another lesson. But, so an origination fee, this is what's weird. When you look at the loan estimate that every lender must, by law, provide to their borrowers, they give a loan estimate. The loan estimate takes those lender junk fees and rolls them into what's called an origination fee. They're goofy for doing that. Just make it simple, but they got to complicate it. So sometimes you'll see on a loan estimate, you'll see a origination fee and other fees lumped all together as the origination fee. But in any event, most people charge some type of lender junk fee. That's part of closing costs. The next part of closing costs are going to be an appraisal. If you have to have an appraisal on a property, that is a closing cost. Next thing you're going to have is if there's going to be a final inspection required because the appraiser made a note of something, there's going to be a final inspection fee. That is a closing cost if it's going to be needed. The next thing are going to be all of the attorney charges. The title company, the attorney is going to charge a settlement fee, doc prep fee, recording fee, title search fee. So they're going to have a series of fees that are going to be part of closing costs. That money does not come to the lender, it goes straight to the attorney or wherever they designate. The next two fees are gonna go to the attorney, and that's your lender's title insurance and your owner's title insurance. Those two items are gonna go straight to that's part of closing costs. The attorneys in Georgia are the title agents, so it goes from the borrower at closing to the attorney, then onto the title company, and the attorney gets to keep their little commission out of it. Now, one thing I will mention about title insurance, owner's title insurance is an optional item, it's not required. Lender's title insurance is required, but whenever lenders are quoting closing costs, we always quote an estimate for both lenders and owner's title, even though only lenders is required. So that's part of closing costs. Then you've got two state taxes that are part of closing costs. Your transfer tax and your intangible tax. Transfer tax is $1 per thousand based on the sales price. If I have a home selling for $300,000, the transfer of the title from the existing owner to the new owner, seller to buyer, is $1 a thousand. Goes to the state of Georgia, we never get the money. There's an intangible tax. The intangible tax is the tax on the mortgage. The state gets their fingers into that one as well, and it's $3 per thousand based on the mortgage amount. So if I have a $200,000 mortgage, not sales price, it's $3 per thousand, which in this example, $600. Those are closing costs. And this document here in yellow lines up, if that's your loan amount, that is approximately your closing cost. But it's just the closing costs. It's not what the borrower needs at closing, it's just the closing costs. All right? This is where it gets confusing, because this last week I had two agents call me and say, Greg, my gosh, one of the agents from this office, and said the lender told my borrower that they were going to have $13,000 in closing costs. I said, no, they didn't. He said, Greg, they did. They said $13,000. What's the sales price? He said $400,000. I said, trust me, he does not have $13,000 in closing costs. He says, but he says he does, and he's got a loan estimate that says that. I said, okay, let's go backwards. Let's break it down as to what he had. On a $400,000, I said he's probably got about, I told him he's probably got somewhere around $6,300 to $6,400. And when we looked at the loan estimate, it came in at $6,250. So it came in, but the document said $13,000, and that's because of closing expenses, which includes the next item, which are prepaids. Now, there are typically just two prepaid items, generally speaking, just two. The first one is interest on the day, from the day of closing to the end of the month. So if I'm closing on the 25th of the month, for example, in July, there's 31 days in the month, that means I am going to have 7 days of interest. I'm loaning the money on the 25th, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. 7 days. If I'm loaning money on the 10th, I'm going to have 22 days. Now, bear in mind, interest is paid in arrears, so if I'm closing the loan in July, the borrower's first house payment is not until September. Because September's payment pays August interest. There is no payment in August. That's why we have the prepaid interest at closing. That make sense, or did I lose anybody? We're all okay? All right, we're all okay. All right, if I'm losing you, tell me. The second prepaid item is homeowners insurance. The borrowers have to pay the first year's homeowners insurance up front. Now, 99 out of 100 times, they do not pay for that insurance prior to closing. They pay for that insurance at closing. But it's a prepaid item. We don't select the insurance. The borrower goes out, selects their insurance. They can use Drake, who comes in here you meet him every Wednesday, or wherever else they want to go. and they select their insurance. We work with the insurance company, we get what's called a declaration page, we get an invoice, and we are going to collect the first year's premium at closing. 2 prepaid items: interest from day of closing end of the month, and homeowners insurance. Now think about it once. Homeowners insurance on a $400,000 home. Could be as little as $1,000, could be as much as $2,600, $2,700, $2,800. The borrower's gonna select it. Whatever that number comes to, we're gonna have to collect it, add the number of days of interest, combine the two, and that is your prepaid. Any question? Makes sense? We're doing good on time. Makes sense so far? Okay. Now, can you see where if you're getting a home and your insurance is gonna be $2,000, and you're thinking closing costs are gonna be $5,000, and all of a sudden somebody says, well, wait a minute, I got this loan estimate here, and it says it's gonna be $8,000 or $9,000. Well, $2,000 of it's just your insurance that you selected, not us. Make sense? Okay. Now, the third item are escrows. Casey mentioned escrows. Now, you don't have to remember all of this, but I will give you the simplest format for understanding escrows. And I promise you this works 100% of the time. We have to collect enough money so that we can pay the insurance bill next year. Now, 60 days prior to the anniversary of the loan, the insurance company is going to send an invoice to the mortgage company requesting payment for the next 12 months. So if I close in July of 2021, come May of 2022, the mortgage company is going to get an invoice asking for payment for the next 12 months. Think about it once. Close in July, first payment's in September. Mortgage company gets the invoice in May. September to May, you've only made 9 house payments. Mortgage company's 3 months short come next May. Where do you think that money comes from so that they're not going to be short next May? What's that? Escrow. Thank you. We are going to collect 3 months at closing, put it into their escrow account so that we've got enough money next year to pay that bill. The 3 months we collect at closing plus 1 payment, plus 9 payments, and we've now got 12. Now, the actual number, because of some weird formula that the government has, it doesn't actually come out to 3 months. It comes out to somewhere around 2.5 months. But just to be safe, 3 months. Now, taxes in the state of Georgia. Taxes. Taxes come out in every county in the state of Georgia except for the infamous DeKalb County. Everybody bills third quarter. Let's just use the month of September, which is typically when they come out. So the tax bill is for January 1st through December 31st. But the tax bill is actually issued in third quarter. So let's just say September. So if I'm closing in the month of July, my first house payment is when? September 1. The bill comes out in September. Mortgage company has to pay 12 months of taxes, and you are only making your first house payment. So how much is the lender going to have to collect at closing so they can make the payment?
12 months.
12 months. Now, where are they going to get the 12 months from? What's that?
Escrow account.
Say that one more time. Somebody.
Escrow.
They're going to get it from escrow, but where is that money going to come from? Who's going to give the 12 months?
Borrower at closing.
Well, actually, it's gonna come partially from the borrower and partially from the seller and partially from the buyer.
Amen. Thank you, Manuel. It's going to come from both. Reason why, it's a calendar year. So if I close today on the 26th, that means that the seller owned the property from the 1st of January through the 26th of this month. They owe those taxes. The tax bill's not out yet, so they're going to base it on 2020 taxes. Unless the assessments come out, then they'll base it on 2021. But we'll collect, in this example, we are going to collect 6 months and 26 days from the seller. The remaining portion, we're gonna collect from the borrower. Well, if you think about that, that's 5 months and five days. So I tell everybody, use this, 6 months. I don't care when you close in the year. We are always going to escrow approximately 6 months. It's usually gonna be somewhere around 5.25 to 5.5, depending what time of the month you close, but it's always the same. Never changes on a purchase. Refis are different, but on a purchase, state of Georgia, we're always gonna collect, with the exception of DeKalb County, because they issue the bill twice. If one's been paid, it may not be 6 months, it might only be 3.5 to 4 months. But other than DeKalb County, don't worry about it. If you tell your borrower, your escrows are gonna be 3 months of homeowners insurance and 6 months of taxes, you are always going to be just a tad high, which means they go to closing, they're gonna owe a little bit less, and they're gonna walk away from closing with an even bigger smile on their face. So that's it. Last week, Rip called me. He had a customer who had, there was something on there that says the loan officer told the customer that the reason he's got so much money he's got to pay at closing is because we have to collect 15 months of taxes because taxes are due. And I said, Rip, it must be a new loan officer. He said, why is that? I said, because any loan officer who's been in a business for any length of time knows 15 months is correct if I'm doing a refinance. But if I'm doing a purchase, it's always 5.5 to 6 months. No matter when you close during the year, it's always. He called the loan officer. Loan officer says, I gotta check on that, I don't think so. I said, how long has that loan officer been in business? 14 years. I'm like, oh my God. People, you now know more than most of the loan officers who are out there. If you'll just use 3 months of homeowner insurance, 6 months of insurance, 6 months of property taxes, you will always be okay. Now, one other exception, if the property taxes are based on a senior exemption and your borrower is not qualified for a senior exemption, it is possible that the amount of money we're going to collect from the seller is going to be quite a bit less than the amount of money we're going to collect from the borrower. That's where you've got to have a good loan officer to help explain all this. But if you'll use 3 and 6, you're fine. So we've got down payment, easy. Closing costs, third-party fees, we broke that down. Prepaids, talked about that. We've talked about the escrows. The last one is HOA. Now, if any of you have...
I hope you enjoyed this video and you learned a lot about closing costs and what are the fees that you need to be aware of and be prepared for when you decide to become a homeowner. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you on my next video.